It was a battle that raged all night. Of the estimated 350,000 dumped tyres at the YE site, nearly half went up in smoke. It's not the first time firefighters and the EPA have been called to such a blaze, the thick smoke releasing carbon dust and sulphur into the atmosphere.
When tyres like this are going up in smoke, apart from the wasted resource, it is not going to help our air quality here in the region.
According to the EPA, it's been involved in a joint surveillance operation with police for the past 2 years to catch those illegally dumping tyres. In March this year, a man was fined $300 and issued with a court order to stay clear of the site.
The court order also bans them from disposing of any tyres without the specific and explicit consent of the Environment Protection Authority.
Last week, the state government handed over a $200,000 grant to help clean up the site. While the EPA is talking to a number of parties interested in recycling the tyres, State Cabinet plans to crack down on offenders with tougher fines under a new waste reform package.
The combination of approaches in terms of recycling and tougher penalties for waste dumping, I think will go a long way to curb the current practices of dumping in the bush.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. RZM, which mines rutile and zircon near Tomago, believed talks in Sydney last Friday would have settled the matter once and for all. The company is seeking permission from the National Parks and Wildlife Service to mine 120 hectares of land, parts of which are home to a koala colony. Company Chief John Lawless says if RZM can't expand its operations, 30 jobs will be axed. RZM was asked to prove that its activities would not affect or harm the koala population. Unhappy with the company's arguments, National Parks has extended the timeframe for an independent study carried out by the CSIRO. The findings are expected to be released on Friday. Meanwhile, boral sand mining operations near Fullerton Cove remain under the eye of environmental watchdogs, including the Northern Parks and Playgrounds movement, which claims such mining is destroying flora and fauna. Demanding a public inquiry, the action group says the company is operating without proper planning approval. Port Stephens Council denies this, but agrees activities near the Cox's Lane site are being carried out under uncertain consent. To help it determine an environmental impact statement, Council agreed to seek advice from the New South Wales Commission of Inquiry. The terms and costs, believed to be around $20,000, will be discussed at tomorrow night's Council meeting. They say that good friendships last a lifetime. Just ask any of these residents who have lived or still reside in Cahaiba. Troubled that old friends were only ever seen at funerals and weddings, Betty Lockwood jumped on the phone and rang a few of her former neighbours. The only prerequisite was a pre-war residential claim.
And I knew everybody was bringing other people, so I did expect 100 at least.
88-year-old Bessie Wolfe took the honours for being the oldest surviving resident. The Abercrombie family proudly boasted 4 generations.
Oh, it was a very, very close-knit community in the early days. It's grown since then, you know.
It's hoped the reunion will become an annual affair.
Zane was back at St Francis Xavier Hamilton today, a kick around in the schoolyard, providing a short break from preparations for the HSC in 3 weeks. And if 4-unit soccer was available, The 18-year-old would have received full marks on Friday night's examination. The debutante caused problems all night for Olympic and wasn't intimidated by the occasion.
My first touch actually did screw off my boot and went where I wanted it to go, so it was probably a dream start actually, and we got the early goal and all, but when I was warming up I was extremely nervous, but once it started, that was the last thing on my mind, my nerves.
But he didn't anticipate playing such a leading hand, helping to produce the equaliser, receiving a standing ovation when replaced late in the game, and the Man of the Match award. Zane's performance is the classic example of the local boy made good. He grew up just 400 metres from here at Breakers Stadium, and the club's return has given him the opportunity to perform against the country's best in his own backyard.
Especially when they got knocked out of the league, I thought I'd have to go to Sydney if ever I was to have a chance in the NSL, but they're back in it now, and hopefully they're here to stay.
The Breakers' next encounter is against Marconi in Sydney on Saturday night. Taylor's unexpected selection caps off an outstanding season for the former Maitland player, who was instrumental in Newcastle's successful launch into the New South Wales competition. The South Pacific squad, which is a late replacement for South Africa, heads for Taiwan on Friday. But the talented 5'8" they call the Freak has only just come to terms with his selection.
I thought it was a joke at first, one of the boys playing a prank, but then he gave me his number to ring him back with a passport problem I had, and it was all real, so yeah, it comes as a shock.
The squad contains several internationals who'll need to be at their best when they confront the world-renowned Fijian side in the quarter-finals.
Something that everyone's looking forward to, but we've got Willio and Manu to take care of them, so we'll be right.
It's a scene so familiar that the Pacific Highway has become a byword for road fatalities. In the state budget, the government has provided $300 million over the next 3 years to make it safer.
The $300 million over 3 years is just not enough, and if we continue on that rate, it's 40 years before we get the Pacific Highway back to the standard that it should be.
We'll be looking at big projects, including the Chindera bypass, the Raymond Terrace bypass, the Raleigh deviation and the Taree bypass.
The NRMA says $4 billion must be spent in the next decade to make the Pacific Highway safer. That's $400 million a year, 4 times as much as the government is willing to spend. The opposition goes further, calling for a $6 billion dual carriageway from Newcastle to Queensland.
We looked at the tollway proposals the last government had. The first wasn't very environmentally sensible, and neither of them stacked up on financial grounds.
The NRMA says the state government isn't solely to blame. It's called on the federal government to do its share.
It needs to improve, it needs to get better, it needs to be at a state where the injuries and the accidents and the deaths are falling, not increasing.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Coach Wiseman was back on the job today after picking up the NBL Coach of the Year award. And while he is pleased to accept that honour, there is work to be done putting a team together for season 1996.
Between which we've got one signed for next year, so it's, as I said, there's quite a bit of work here to do.
It's expected the nucleus of this year's side will re-sign, but the Falcons will need a class import to replace Reggie Smith, who has gone to France for a season for more than the entire Falcons salary cap.
Reggie signed a nice new contract I wish that I had a percentage of, but I don't, in France for some pretty good numbers.
That's a problem for Wiseman. Snaring quality players can be expensive. The Falcons coach leaves for America in 2 weeks to check out a number of players. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Australia has the highest incidence of skin cancer in the world, a fact of which Newcastle Council is acutely aware.
What we're saying is that we need to protect our staff from UV rays which may damage their skin.
If Council has its way, stubbies and T-shirts will be out and long-sleeve shirts and shorts to the knee will be in for outdoor council staff.
The new dress code will apply to council workers who spend most of their time in the sun. It's hoped that by wearing more protective clothing, the incidence of skin cancer will be reduced.
Newcastle Council is aware of the potential for staff who develop skin cancer to lodge workers' compensation claims. Road maintenance workers, pool and beach staff and park staff will be issued with the new clothing on a trial basis within a month. It's hoped workers will not oppose the cover-up.
We've got to go through a process of education and getting staff to understand our obligations under the guidelines and under our occupational health and safety requirements.
Bruce Mulligan believes other councils across the state will follow suit. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The essentials in the pantry.
For some, it's a home on wheels that offers all the latest mod cons. Nearly 500 motorhomes and campervans have converged on Maitland for the annual rally organised by their national club.
Now they're from all over Australia, from every state and territory.
It's an adventurous lifestyle that's growing in popularity. The fully contained units regular visitors to national parks and state forests.
and we can travel anywhere we like and for as long as we like, and it's just great and you meet lovely people.
Well, there's a lot of Australians haven't seen Australia, but I think a lot of motorhome owners have seen Australia, and this is what it's all about, seeing where we live and appreciating what we've got.
The travelling homes come in all shapes and sizes, and it can be an expensive hobby. It's taken 3 years and several $100,000 to convert this rig into a custom-designed model with all the comforts of home.
Well, they just love their life. One of our members have been travelling for up to 6.5 years. And they just call into their own home every now and then. And, you know, it's just, you grow from your tent to your caravan and now to a motorhome, and you wouldn't have it any other way.
Retired plumber Frank Darcy plans to build a house on this newly acquired block of land in the Newcastle suburb of Merewether. But this is no ordinary housing site. Below lies a disused water reservoir. Built in 1886, it's 10 metres deep and 20 metres wide.
You can't appreciate it, it's this big from up top.
22 cast iron pillars support the roof. Frank Darcy isn't sure how the family will use the Gothic-looking site.
It has been identified as having significant heritage value, and I've got no intentions of pulling the tank down. It's in very
Among the suggested uses, a wine cellar that would probably qualify as the largest in the Southern Hemisphere.
Now you mentioned it, 2 megalitres of wine's a lot of wine. So that's one good idea, isn't it?
If not, he's also considering turning it into a concert hall or even a restaurant. The possibilities are endless.
A scare went through the Breakers camp at last night's training session with teenager Clayton Zane nursed through the hour-and-a-half hit-out.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder what he's been up to, these young blokes. You can't trust them. When I was 18, there wasn't anything around like that. No, seriously, it's only about a German measles, and he's had the spots for a couple of days, so I think the worst is over.
Zane was one of the heroes in last week's draw against Olympic. But while the 18-year-old Damien Brown and Jason Bennett took their chances up front, the boys at the back made life difficult for Olympic's 7 internationals. Among them, Andy Roberts, who was the players' player and faces another daunting task in shutting down Marconi.
We've worked on our shape tonight. That's one thing that Cozzie's worked on tonight, and we'll just keep that basic shape at the back, and we'll take what they give us, mate.
And my aim is to improve on each performance with each successive game. So if we can play at least as well, if not better than last week, I'll be over the moon.
Meantime, the Breakers are continuing negotiations with Parramatta midfielder Glenn Sprod.
I was heading out to the clothesline, actually, yeah. A few more minutes and I would have been out here. It would have been only a few minutes. I was very lucky. I'm feeling very unlucky. I wasn't superstitious till today.
The annual Knights Ball celebrated the club's most successful season, equal third in first grade and a premiership by the reserves. That very success reduced the number of players able to attend the function, with 5 Knights away on representative duties. But the most prestigious award of the night was to elude the club's big names, Paul Marquette named Player of the Year. Marquette also couldn't attend the night, away on a different type of duty, his honeymoon. The award follows his naming as Players Player of the Year. A historic night for the city's other code, with the Wildfires celebrating their return to the Sydney competition. But the union function had the same problems as their league counterparts, with the winner of the Phil Hawthorn medal, Christian Taylor, unable to attend the night. He's in Taiwan after being selected for the South Pacific Barbarians team playing in the Taipei Sevens. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. It's a sport that's usually forgotten by most until the Commonwealth or Olympic Games. But former champion Darren Clark wants to help change that as he tries to keep talented young athletes interested in the sport. He says it's essential that potential stars are identified early so they can be given the best training before they develop bad habits.
It's an important thing for youngsters, especially in little A's and stuff, to learn the correct techniques. So hopefully they'll be able to learn a little bit today. And also we're trying to spot a little bit of talent for the year 2000 Olympics and beyond.
Clark says the Sydney Olympics is the perfect platform for a resurgence in Australian athletics. He says the chance to perform at the highest level in front of an Australian crowd will overcome the talent drain to other sports.
Well, it is difficult when there's other sports offering large money, but hopefully one day, if we can use the Olympics 2000 to its full potential, we might be able to get some more money in the sport, and that will therefore encourage them to stay.
Today's training session at Raymond Terrace is set to become an annual event, in the hope that legends of the sport can help to create new ones. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The state budget handed down last week sent shockwaves through training agencies that deliver youth unemployment programs. Outraged over broken election promises, protesters voiced their dismay outside Newcastle's Department of Training and Education offices. $8 million has been axed from the Northern Region's labour market training budget, bringing an end to 2 successful schemes, Workplace and Get Started. A petition will be sent to Premier Carr. A political backlash has been forecast in the lead-up to the federal election.
They've turned their back on people that this government has gone out there saying should be supporting.
The programs have helped thousands of young people gain the skills needed to enter the workforce.
This Get Started program's helped a lot of people, and it's helping me. 2 days ago I wouldn't even walk into an interview. Now I'd walk in and I reckon I'd get the job.
All I can really say is he sucks, he shouldn't be doing it.
It's argued the cutbacks will only serve to encourage long-term unemployment. State government help is now only available to youths who've been out of work for at least 18 months.
I hate to say it, but I think that they don't care. I think that's the message, that they don't care about young unemployed people. And that's an awful thing to say about a Labor government.
A statewide rally will be staged outside Parliament House in Sydney on Thursday. Melinda Smith, NBN News. The Australia Council, which hands out federal arts funds, claims the Hunter Symphony Orchestra has fared well compared with other organisations. When the group struck serious financial problems last year, the federal government helped out with a $120,000 grant. That's fallen to $90,000. The council says the latest funding package is in line with what the orchestra received in the past. However, the orchestra was hoping for around $200,000 to establish a core of residential musicians. Its plans to become a full-time regional symphony orchestra placed on the back burner. There was good news for the Freewheels Theatre and Education Group. It's received more than $157,000, while the 2 till 5 theatre company will get $40,000. The federal funding battle still continues for the troubled Hunter Valley Theatre Company and the rival university-based Hunter Foundation for the Arts organisation, headed by Professor Raoul Mortley. The Australia Council is yet to receive their applications. Both groups will have to wait until next March before the second round of grants is handed out.
An estimated 60,000 people packed into Beaumont Street for the annual celebration, double the crowd of last year. It's taken 17 years to build the concept from a small community celebration to that of a Mardi Gras for multiculturalism. The fiesta is proving so popular that organisers believe it can become the biggest multicultural festival in Australia, with its achievements already being recognised around the country.
When I was in Melbourne last year, people were already talking to me about this particular festival, this fiesta, in Beaumont Street. And that's when you start hearing these things as far afield as that, then of course we're really coming into recognition.
It's already a major money spinner for the city and is set to become an important part of Newcastle's 1997 bicentenary birthday party. Organisers say its continued success is due to the festival not losing the support of the community that inspired the original concept.
One of the things that I think is a strength of this festival is that it's owned by the community, and the sponsors have been particularly good in allowing the community to run with it and have contributed to enriching it.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Race of the carnival, but most interest this morning was on the fitness of displaced cup favourite Shaskay. Friedman brothers Richard and Anthony were paying.
It will be at least another decade before most of these students will be able to drive on the roads. But it's hoped the lessons learned through this challenging hands-on display will not be forgotten.
We're trying to cover a range of different people within the exhibition. We've got information for drivers, but also for pedestrians and cyclists as well.
The $1 million project, hailed as the world's first interactive road safety exhibition, is a joint effort between the NRMA and Questacon, the National Science and Technology Centre in Canberra.
Part of the program that the children go through is a 30-minute science show where they look at what happens in a collision and some of the physics of collisions and how road safety fits with the science aspect.
Last year, nearly half of the 647 people that died on the state's roads were under the age of 17. The Travelling Road Safety Initiative is aimed at reducing that figure.
We've learned how far you have to stay away from a car when it's raining and the distance you have to go in raining weather. And we've also learnt how to overtake and how to keep safely on the road without crashing.
Bicycles and how we have to obey the same rules as drivers, and yeah, I've learnt lots of things that will be handy in the future when I get my licence.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Adam Walters had gone to bed just before midnight when he heard a noise outside his Nelson Street flat. He went to investigate and was approached by two men who hit him in the groin and over the head with an iron bar.
They
meant to put me down so they could get away. That was their main objective, I think. Just so they could escape without getting chased.
The two men had been trying to jemmy open the back door of neighbouring Warren's hairdressers. Adam disturbed them and for his efforts has 4 stitches to his scalp. It's the second time in a week thieves have tried to break into the salon. Adam, though, says he'll try a different tactic if there's a next time.
Just ring the police and let the police handle it.
Jodie McKay, NBN News. It's the second time in 3 weeks Robin Sakuro has been laid up in Newcastle's Mater Hospital, and both times she's been bitten by a tiger snake.
I was talking on the phone to my daughter, and I was starting to feel a bit disorientated again, and I thought, gee, this rings a bell. It's something like I felt 3 weeks ago. I glanced down and found another 2 prong marks on the same arm.
Robin suffers from multiple sclerosis and has little feeling in her arm. She can only guess that she was bitten while using an outside toilet at her Burrell property.
The toilet paper's on the left and it's the left arm all the time, so maybe he's sort of sitting in there behind the chip heater.
Can you believe that you've been bitten twice in 3 weeks by one of the world's most deadliest snakes?
No, I can't actually, and I can't believe that I'm still here to tell the tale and laugh about it, because, it is a little unbelievable.
Head of the hospital's toxicology unit, Dr. Ian White, has only ever known professional snake handlers to suffer double bites in such a short time.
No, we've not seen anyone who's been bitten like that before.
Robin, though, can see the funny side of a situation which could have claimed her life.